your interview, you really drew out the General Milley's comment afterwards and the leaders of the military, and this was just crucial, according to something you said to Vanity Fair. Can you focus on that for a minute?
Yes. So the U.S. military has a very strong tradition of its own. It's been around for a long time, and it has very strong guardrails for really, really interesting historical and psychological reasons that I won't go into now, but I would dearly love to, because it's really interesting. I won't. But the one exception to that is Homeland Security, by the way. They are new and they do not have those traditions. So one of the things the military has always done is very aggressively stayed out of politics. That is part of their tradition, and there are very strong reasons that they do that. And Milley, I remember seeing Milley that day walking across Lafayette Square in his battle fatigues, and me thinking, oh boy, we're in trouble, because that line has been crossed. And I was not aware at the time that Milley peeled off. He didn't realize what was going to happen, and he and Esper peeled off. But the day after that, he writes a letter saying, I did not intend to do that. That was a huge mistake. And then 3 days later, he gives a speech at a graduation that is all about how the military must not do that, must not get involved. And there's all kinds of op-eds everywhere where people are from the military are saying, that is not us. And then the Navy gets involved, and the Air Force. And each branch, huge numbers of people wrote letters saying, this is not what the American military is about. And that was really important, not only because there were so many members of the military who had been involved in right-wing organizations, although 40% of our military are people of color. So there's a tension in that when people talk about the military as being all part of one group or all part of another. It's important to remember that Milley is talking about 40% of his population when he says it's really important that we care, for example, about race issues in the military. Or when he did, he's no longer the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But when the military took that stand, it was a really huge deal, not only because it reinforced these traditions, but also because it said to Trump and his supporters, you do not have the military behind you. So you're not going to be able to turn this into a military coup. And that was a neon sign across the heavens that he was not going to be able to use the military the way that other military coups were able to do. And that's the point when he starts to use the armed forces that are within Homeland Security, because there's actually a lot of police forces we have, for example, in different parts of what are now Homeland Security that are operate under different rubrics, and some of them are in very funny places, but there are a number of those law enforcement officers there, and that's who he turns to. But they are no match for the U.S. military. So the fact that the U.S. military took that stand changed the trajectory in really important ways, and right up until January 3rd, another really important event on January 3rd was that all 10 at the time living defense secretaries, we've lost one since, put an op-ed in the Washington Post saying to the military, stay out of politics. And if you don't stay out of politics, we promise you, we will make sure that you are accountable for what you've done. And think about what that means. That means January 3rd, these 10 defense secretaries who are from all parties and obviously from a long period of time were concerned enough about the role of the military in the counting of the counting of the electoral votes on January 6th, that they took the Christmas holiday and the New Year's Eve holiday, and they got together and they managed to write an op-ed that all 10 of them would sign off on. And if you have ever tried to get 10 people to sign off on a document, I remember seeing that document and thinking, oh boy, they're really worried if this is how they spent the holidays. And the fact that they stepped back and have reinforced, as Milley did when he stepped down at the end of last month, was a really important defense of democracy. I will say it is important that our military does not have to do that. The fact that they did that is astonishing and incredibly important, but they should never have been put in that position. And that's important to remember. Although it's lovely that they do it, that's not their job, and that's our job that they did for us that time, and we should never put them in that position again. But thank God they did.